What else do we learn about Israel? The nation of Israel. Unity. There's something else about that nation if you've been there. How many people, I said it in the dark, but how many people have been to Israel here? Okay. You know what it looks like? It kind of looks like here. Israel kind of copied what we had here. No. This is in Jerusalem. It has this look. Israel is a nation that remembers where they came from. There's a day in Israel, the day of remembrance, where they remember the Holocaust. And it is silence across the land. They are to never forget. They say never forget what we came out of to be here. I mean, it's similar to what God did when he took them out of Egypt. He says, never forget what I took you from. Never forget it. Every year, remember what I took you from. And yet, when it talks about the end time prophecies, an amazing prophecy, God says the time will come when they won't say the God who took them out of Egypt. He'll say the God who took them out of the north, who took them out of all the nations of the world. So they remember where they came from. It's a secret of the Israelis. Because when they remember that, it gives them the meaning to remember all those things. You go to Israel, there's something called Yad Vashem, which is the memorial of the Holocaust, and it's very moving. But you come outside, and you see a living, resurrected miracle land that from death came life. And it gives all the more meaning to it. And so as the spiritual Israelis, we are never to forget what we came out of. Never lose sight of where you were before God. Never forget what God did for your life. Never forget your Egypt. So you remember so that you'll never want to go back. And that you'll always give thanks and never forget that it's a miracle that you're in God. Because none of us deserve to be in here. Gary was writing me an email yesterday. He says, I don't know how I even got in. I said, no, me too, Gary. I don't know how we got in. But that's the way we should always feel. How do we get in? Paul said, even years later, he said, I was the greatest sinner, but I got in. And never forget where you came from, so you'll never stop appreciating what you have in God. And you'll never turn back, because you know what that is. The Israelis are all part of a miracle. In Israel, everybody in Israel is part of a miracle. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be the street cleaner. They're part of a miracle. If they could be the garbage collector. It's a miracle. Because it's the garbage of the Holy Land. Because there wouldn't even be garbage if it wasn't a miracle of God. You understand? The falafel salesman, a miracle. Because there wouldn't have been falafels if God didn't do it. Everyone has a part because the very existence of that land is a miracle. So you in the new birth, everyone in the body is a miracle. Because nobody by nature would be in the body. Nobody by nature would be a true believer because it's only a miracle. Nobody by nature is born again. So everybody, and even when you get tired of that person and the things they're a miracle. So yeah, but it's a pain. But it's a miracle pain because they wouldn't be there. They're a royal. You say, well, it's a royal pain. But it's royal. Remember, it's a miracle, so you don't get lost. That's how congregations go off and they argue over the color of the carpet, and they have all because they forgot the whole point. It's a miracle that we're here. It's his doing, not ours. He called, and no matter what you do, everyone has a place in the body. Everybody has a place in ministry. And whatever you do, whether it's preaching or cleaning the bathrooms, it is equally holy and equally miraculous. Because you never would have been there without it. When the Jews of Europe and Russia, they first came to Israel, the pioneers they were called, something happened. They often would do something, those first generation. When they arrived here, these are people who grew up in Europe, grew up in the ghettos, or grew up, under persecution in rabbinic Judaism. And when they went back to their land, and it was actually radical, many of the rabbis saying, don't do this. They went back to the land, something happened. They would often change their names. For instance, there was a man named Eleazar Perlman, Jewish name. He became Eleazar ben Yehuda. And he's the one who single-handedly, God used him to fulfill prophecy. He single-handedly resurrected the entire language of Hebrew. There was another man named David Green. Green, nice Jewish name. He came there. He changed his name to David Ben Gurion. That means the son of the lion, who was the first president or prime minister of Israel. There was a woman named Golda Meyerson. Nice name. You can figure that one out. Meyerson. She changed her name, became Golda Meir. They came to a new land, and they were led to take up new names. And so many of the Israeli names many of them were new. I mean, of course, they were old. They were ancient, but they're new. So the same principle for God's Israel in the Spirit. When you come into it, you have to come into it with a new identity of yourself. A new you, the old that is not me. Because they felt instinctively there's a new thing happening about, and we cannot bring the old life into the new land. And the same in God. Whoever you are, we have to make that decision and continue to make it every day. I am not the old, I am the new. I am a new creation. God says, I will give you a new name, a new identity. If anyone be in Messiah, he or she is a new creation. The old has passed away. What does that mean? Part of that old creation is the identity. I am not that person. I am not that person, even though I thought I was that person. I am a new person who was the person I was always supposed to be. Whatever I was not what it goes with the Israelis. They were in all these lands. They were scattered in the lands. That's how they grew up, speaking Russian, speaking all these names. But this was not God didn't call them originally to be in the nations. That was a punishment. That was a fall. You know, the diaspora, being outside Israel, is called the exile in Hebrew, the galut. So in the same way, life without Jesus, before you're born again, you think that that's you. It's not you. That's the fallen part. That's the exile. So when we got to get into our minds and into our emotions, into our hearts, that who we are becoming is the real us from the beginning. It's what God purposed, not the other one. The other one might have similarity. That's part of how we were created. But it's the new you, the holy one, that's the real you. It is the royal one, that's the real you. It's the peculiar one. It says you're peculiar. Well, that's true. Well, you still were peculiar, but that's the real you. Is the one that God called, because that's what He created. But I am not that. As much as they had to take a renaming, we have to rename ourselves. Some of you, your name in your mind, in your heart, in your emotions is failure. You got to rename yourself. I am victorious in God. There's some of you, your name to yourself is rejected. You got to change that. I'm accepted by God. Some of you, your name is victim. You got to change that. I am a victorious person in God. You have to read it because that's what the Bible said. It's not some nice positive thinking thing. That's the gospel of why He died and rose to redeem you.